I'm Aaron, thank you for stopping by. I'm going to be reviewing a sketchbook that I did from August to November of 2020, and it was my attempt to get back in the routine of drawing after a pretty long period of only drawing once every few months. I decided to start off with ballpoint pen, and occasionally we'll work into digital in this sketchbook with a one marker sketch, I think, a little bit of colored pencil, but it was basically an attempt to force myself to adhere to fundamentals of drawing with cars. And the vehicle that made me want to start this sketchbook is this. It's a 1977 Chevy Silverado by a company called Auto World. And it's small, so I had to find photo reference to get the details correct in the actual sketch that I did. And I use models on a pretty regular basis at this point to create my sketches, just so that I wouldn't rely on photographs or get into the habit of copying photographs, even though I do use them for reference. So next up will be my actual sketchbook. And the whole purpose of doing these videos right now, or this video in particular, is to establish a process so that I can eventually draw while I videotape and talk. But I've never made a video, uploaded one, or edited one, so this is pretty much a complete learning experience for me, and I appreciate your understanding and bearing with me. To start the sketchbook review, this is the 1977 Silverado that I mentioned previously. I wanted to play with perspective and just practice the ballpoint pen. I like the logo. This is a very quick and dirty sketch, but it is the first one that I had done in quite a while, so the objective was to get it done. Next, this is when I actually got to use Photoshop to render it. I printed it out. I just kind of wanted to play with layers and see what I could come up with. And this is okay, but I felt like I relied too heavily on gradients, and it's a very, I guess you could say gestural if you want to be nice, but it's a pretty loose sketch. So I realized that I didn't want to just keep on going to digital. I wanted to start with a simpler approach, which is this. This tractor is an International 1486. I have a 16th scale model of that, and I wanted to play with shadow, hatching, line weights, and general construction. Even though there aren't a lot of organic forms on this, or maybe because there aren't a lot of organic forms, the intersections have to be right with these, or they'll get weird really quickly. So these tractors, even now, are challenging to draw, but I really enjoy it. So you'll see this come back a few times. Here's a Mercedes 300 SL, or Gullwing as a lot of people call it. I was playing with section lines, kind of trying to show the basic form. The hood's a little flat on this one, but again, another learning process, and I just really like these cars, so I wanted to try it. If I were to do it now, I would give the hood a much more dome shape, probably lessen these shoulders just slightly, get the ellipses more accurate for the wheels and headlights. A lot of corrections to make, but I had to finish it, so that's what I came out with. Here's a Porsche 356 and another 300 SL. I have both of these in smaller scale models. They're probably 3 or 4 inches long. And these were just really quick studies. I call these cheater views when they're direct from the side. And you'll see I do quite a few of those because it gives an opportunity to work with line and value without worrying too much about the form of the car. And they're very easy to read. So it's a very graphically effective way to draw. But it's not quite as challenging as doing a 3/4 view like this, or a tip-up, I guess you would call that. So, then getting into September of 2020, this is a Bugatti Chiron. I have a 12-scale model of this. It's an auto art model. And I did these just to get used to doing a different form factor. These are completely different than the older cars that I normally draw, and quite challenging. So these took several hours each, which may seem hard to believe because they're only pen drawings, but put a lot of time into line weight and trying to get everything accurate. I didn't use any straight edges, I didn't use any ellipses, and as a result it ate up a lot more time and wasn't as clean as it would have been otherwise, but it really was a muscle memory practice to try to just get my body in the routine of drawing circles and getting things to be more accurate and organic. Same with this sketch. I forget what these papers are. I'll have to look on my Instagram account and see what they are, but as you can see, this one is a little bit more yellow. I think that is how it was from the beginning. Another Bugatti Chiron from the back. It has a very interesting engine liftoff cover, and you can see the 2 intake plumes, I believe is what they are, for the 16-cylinder engine. a lot I would do different on this. The construction of the wheels, it looks like it has four-wheel steering in the back, and some things to fix, but every time I do a drawing, I see something wrong. So you hear me say what I think I need to do better next time, because that's what I always look for. Here's a Mura. I love these. I have a 16th scale Mura S that I use as a reference to draw from. It's bright red, which is a color that I really like, but it's not very good for reading form. So I have to look at photos online of cars with metallics or lighter or darker colors to see where the value patterns fall. And this was no exception. The windshield came out kind of large on this, headlights small, the rear end is too skinny. But again, one of those things that had to be done quickly the night that I started it, and this is what I ended up with. I love the logo for these. It's derived from a bull, as you can see, with the little horns in the tail, and I tried to incorporate that into the implied vignette, as much of a vignette as I could achieve with hatching. This is the 77 Silverado again. Really like these trucks. I just wanted to play with construction. Totally different form factor, and it felt like a little bit of a break compared to the more organic type cars that I'd been sketching. And I drew these again quickly, line. I never went to digital with these. These were just something that I wanted to do. I intended to go digital, but I never did. I ended up seeing ways that I could improve my line work, and I figured I might as well do that to the best of my ability before I transition to something else. But I do love a lot of the logos used on vehicles of this era, so I took the Chevy logo. I believe this is on the back of the roof pillar right there, and then the 4x4 logo is generally on the center caps of these trucks. Another Mura. This may have been a smaller model. I'm actually very happy with the outcome of this. The value doesn't read quite as well as I would like, and it's not that dramatic, but I think it has good volume. I was pretty happy with the feel of that one. Another 300 SL. This one does not have the section or the contour lines going across the hood, but the volume reads better. This was not quite a month into beginning drawing again, and I think my ability to read form was improving slightly. I was playing with hatching and hadn't gone to marker yet, but really just trying to get it to read with line is a good challenge and very good for practicing fundamentals. For I-250 GTO, both of these, I have a 18th scale Kyosho model of this car, and I use that for both of these sketches. In retrospect, the 250 has kind of a characteristic flat spot in the ellipse that covers the headlights, and I missed that on these. The more time I spend looking at these, the more I realize it's there, but these have their errors in the form. They're organic, and for me, pretty challenging at this time to draw. The greenhouse is more geometric, so that simplifies it, but the way that the volumes read on this, it's okay. I did it a lot more, so I don't know if those examples are in this sketchbook, but I have drawn this car quite a few times, and I'm probably going to continue to draw it again and again, because it's just a good evaluation of how you're proceeding or progressing over time. And then 250 again from the rear. The window looks a little long on the side on that one, but, you know, I was just doing the same exact thing. Mura. This one looks flat. Glass is big, headlights are little. I don't know if this was supposed to be a SV and I forgot the eyelashes. I don't know. So I've done more Muras since then, and hopefully they're better than that one. But here's a Mura from the rear. Pretty easy view. Happy with that one. Not saying it's necessarily the most accurate, but I like the proportions. That's an SV, so I probably fattened the tires more than they really would have been just to achieve a wider visual effect. And these little ridge lines for these intakes that are just after the side windows, they aren't that obvious in photographs, but in models, and if you see close-ups of the detail of the car, they are pretty obvious. So I tend to overemphasize those in my sketches because I just really like the little details. I've only seen one Mura in person, and what struck me as amazing was how small it looked in real life relative to how big it looks in the photographs, and it's largely because of the way it's proportioned so elegantly. Here's another Bugatti Chiron, and tried to catch a little bit of the center console in there. I think things are progressing okay here. Still a little bit scratchy on line work, but overall construction's okay. Don't really have any good value patterns blocked out on this. I do have a core line for the horizon, but it's
You know, it's kind of blunt when it comes to merging with these faces on the wheelhouses, but hey, always learning from these, so I kept on going. This is October, so I've been drawing just over a month again at this point. 1970 Eldorado. I have one of these. I really like these cars. I tried to do a sort of a side tip up. Totally freehand, although when I look at it, it's got a very rigid feel. These wheel centers stick out uncharacteristically far on the Eldorado and Toronado. I would have liked to have captured that a little bit more to emphasize the perspective in this view. And a little sagging on the roof line. The glass is one of my favorite areas, and on this one, it's just looking a little bit malformed, but I'm criticizing it, as I always do when I draw these again. I look back at what I did and try to do it better. Another 1486 International. I like this perspective. You can see I hand laid the vanishing points. It's a 2-point perspective, and this was a pretty challenging sketch. At this point in time, this ended up, in this sketchbook at least, this ended up being my most popular sketch on Instagram. And looking at it now, I can kind of see why. It's interesting. The detail is of this particular vehicle is fun to look at, and it was a challenge to capture. But I think this one came out okay overall. 67 Cadillac DeVille convertible. I have a model of this. The model is inaccurate, and I made the mistake of looking at the model and trying to draw from that. The distance from the trailing edge of the wheelhouse to the leading edge of the door is too long on the model, and the rockers don't tuck under quite the right way, as you can see here. The hubcap centers on this one are out a little bit too far. The ellipses are out. There's a lot of construction issues with these, but these cars are kind of tough to draw if you're not familiar with drawing them on a regular basis, or if you're getting acquainted with drawing for the first time or again. This car's too wide, the hood's too short. Lots to learn from this one. It still is identifiable as a 67 Cadillac, but I've drawn 67 Cadillacs since that I'm far happier with. I'll cover those maybe in another view, or maybe I'll draw one online. W126 Mercedes. I had a 1984 European market W126. This one, I think I wanted to be a European market car, but the front bumper sticks out quite far, so maybe I screwed those proportions up a little bit. But these are Bruno Seiko design cars. I absolutely love the visual design of these, and they drive really well, amazing build quality, and I just wanted to draw one. Looking at it now, I think I need to draw it again. Here's a Ferrari 365 Daytona. This is a competizione, or competition. I don't know how to say it in Italian, but I have a Kyosho 16th scale model of this, or 18th scale, sorry. And it's got the plexiglass covers on the headlights, no bumpers, side exit pipes. The Daytonas had different phases of these competition models, and some of them have a more squared off rear wheelhouse, some of them have a more rounded. Obviously this one is the more squared off, and I left any kind of visual or any type of graphic markings off of the car. I really like the form. I think I'm going to, in the future, draw kind of a hybrid composite of what I would have built one of these cars as if I was able to buy one at that point in time. But I really like the 365. A couple Miras, cut them funny because they wouldn't fit within this little envelope. Lots wrong here. Huge opening over the engine. Hood is short. Wheel is just a lot wrong. I just was trying to do different perspectives. It's very challenging. And or at least for me, it's very challenging. So I also try to salvage the drawings with line weight. I don't really like to throw sketches away. I do occasionally if they frustrate me enough, but I draw them through and see what I did wrong, and then I keep it, and now I'm talking about it. So I will keep these in mind when I work on these in the future, when I draw these cars in the future. F4 Phantom. This was probably supposed to be a J, although it's harder to tell by the actual details because I didn't show the nose, but the gear is supposed to be a little fatter, flaps are down. It's supposed to kind of be a carrier launch, but it was largely from a model that I have, a 148 scale monogram F4J, and I put different markings on it. It's got the November Echo tail code, VF154 is, I believe, what squadron this was. These are tough to draw. People draw airplanes quite often, but once you become very familiar with the form, you can see a lot of errors, and on this particular one, at least when I draw them, I notice a lot of errors, and on this particular one, I feel good about the construction overall, but the front end has kind of a twisted around leaning feel. That's just the way it goes when you're trying to get something done quickly, or at least for me. I did this in October of 2020. Here is another W126. The bumper reads much more like a European market car. The wheels look small, but these were 14-inch wheels on these cars, which is surprising considering their performance and the overall form. It's proportionally very small, but they changed that, I think, in 85 or 86. They had the, I believe they're called Guladeckle wheels. This does not have those. I think this has the bunt wheels. I have to look. I'm not sure. I didn't draw it clear enough to know. So in the future, I'll have to do that more effectively. 1970 Eldorado. It's okay, not great, but I wanted to catch this tumble home form that these cars have. It is kind of unique on the Eldorado and the Toronado both. The hood is unusually long on this sketch. In real life, it's long too, but I think it's even longer here than it is in real life. And then just a quick line drawing. I really like those cars, so I was trying to make it look like a 70 Eldorado as closely as possible. Here's a 68 Porsche 912 Targa. I like the chrome bumper Porsches, as I call them, and then I also like the Targa roofline. In a Raymond Loewe book that I have, he claims that they stole this from him. He doesn't name Porsche specifically. He says a well-known car company, and I assume this is who he's referring to. But I hadn't drawn any Porsches before, and this was a fun opportunity to work with an organic form as opposed to the vehicles I usually draw with sharper edges. Here is an F-150 or F-100, I'm not sure, 1980 model year approximately. But I drew this from a Tamiya Blackfoot model that I have. I just wanted to play with something, again, completely different, blocking in the negative or the dark area. I'm sorry, I guess I should say shadow areas, the best I could. Lots of little inaccuracies with this, but this was really something fun and quick, and just trying to get in the routine of drawing all the time, playing with perspective, construction, single vanishing point in the center. Here is my first attempt to draw with a marker in over 20 years, and literally with 20-year-old markers. This was supposed to be a line drawing. I was very unhappy with it, and I thought, whatever, this is going to go in the trash, and I had a shoebox full of old markers, and I started messing around with them. Were I to do this right now, I'm still pretty happy with this overall shape considering the amount of time that I put into it. I would just give a different treatment with the surrounding area, but I was literally seeing which markers still had ink and which ones didn't. These were design markers. This is before I bought any Copics. And then 1970 Eldorado. Wheels, the ellipses are off. They look, they're sucked underneath. Not really sure why I thought that was okay when I drew it, but it's easy to pick it apart after you're done with it. Then I took it into Photoshop. Normally I would wait. Something like this I wouldn't throw into Photoshop, and I'm not that confident in the construction, but maybe I just scanned it and wanted to mess with it. A lot of these drawings I do scan into Photoshop, and then I turn the white background into a transparent background so that I can do them digitally if I decide to in the future. But looking at them right now, they're so old that I probably won't do that with these. I may. If there's a few that I feel are strong or interesting, I may go in and try that, but this was a digital attempt. Here's an Alfa Romeo Bat. I really like the form of these cars, and the proportions are very unusual. The wire wheels provided a little bit of a challenge with implication, so I enjoyed this. I may take this one into Photoshop sometime and try to do it, but I'm happy with the perspective. I'm happy with how the volume reads overall. It's not perfect, but it's pretty decent. I think it might make a good digital rendering. This one looks a little wide to me. The Bat is a very dramatic car, but I don't think it's quite that wide. But you can still tell what it is. So I knocked this one out. It was a good challenge because the form is so much different from what I'm used to drawing. Another Alfa Romeo Bat, quick one in sketch, or in pencil. And then a 365 from the front. This particular sketch is okay, but it feels very rigid, so I probably won't ever consider taking that one digital. Going on, 1959 Cadillac. This was for Halloween in 2020. Just a quick pencil sketch of a superior bodied 59 Cadillac hearse, and then I took it into Photoshop and reversed it out and did some experimentation with it. Then to conclude this sketchbook, here is a pencil McDonnell Douglas F4J Phantom. No squadron markings, really not much of any detail on it. It has drop tanks on it, and that's about it. And I guess if you know F4s, you can come to the conclusion that it's a J just because it has the Navy intake markings up front, but it was pretty quick. The proportions of this vertical stab were off, the canopy's too stubby. Again, 1st of November of 2020, I was trying to do a drawing a day just to get proficient again, and this was an okay attempt. I'm not that satisfied with it now, but I shouldn't be. I hope that I progress. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video today. I will be eventually drawing while I talk. This video is intended to help me prepare for that eventuality because I have not created and uploaded a video, so I have to get my process down. But in the meantime, I'll be doing more drawings and posting them on Instagram, and the next time you see me here, I will likely be in the process of making a drawing. Thank you again. Bye for now.